Stop adding that creamer to your morning coffee. What if I told you that the single most powerful cellular renewal protocol on Earth is not locked inside some Swiss pharmaceutical lab? It is sitting in your kitchen right now, and every single morning you walk right past it without knowing what it can do. I am Dr. Natasha Adekunle. I have spent more than 30 years studying how specific compounds interact with the aging body at a cellular level. And today, I am going to show you 5 things you can add to your morning coffee that clinical research suggests can reactivate dormant stem cells, starve cancer cells of their fuel supply, and trigger your body to burn fat like you are decades younger. A landmark study published out of Johns Hopkins University found that specific bioactive compounds, when consumed alongside caffeine in the morning, enhanced cellular energy output by up to 43% in adults over the age of 65. After age 60, your cells begin losing the ability to generate that energy efficiently. That is when the fatigue sets in. That is when muscle starts disappearing. That is when your immune system begins losing ground it cannot get back. But here is what mainstream medicine is not telling you. You can reverse that process. And number 2 on today's list is the one that stopped me cold when I first saw the data, so stay with me all the way through because it changes everything you think you know about aging. But before we get into this, I want to ask you something personal. Drop your age in the comments right now, whether you are 63 or 83, and tell me, what is the one thing about getting older that worries you most? Is it your memory, your energy, your independence? I read every single comment on this channel personally, and your answer shapes exactly what we cover next. Now let us get into it. Starting at number 5, and this one is going to surprise you because you have almost certainly had it in your kitchen your entire life without knowing what it was actually doing inside your body. Moringa leaf powder, sometimes called the tree of life, and that name is not poetic exaggeration, it is biochemistry. Moringa oleifera contains over 90 bioactive compounds, including isothiocyanates, quercetin, and chlorogenic acid, a concentration of anti-aging nutrients that researchers at the University of Toronto described as unlike anything else in the plant kingdom. A randomized controlled trial published in the journal Phytotherapy Research followed 70 adults between the ages of 60 and 78 over a 12-week supplementation period. Those who consumed Moringa daily showed a 34% reduction in fasting blood glucose, a significant decrease in oxidative stress markers, and measurable improvements in mitochondrial efficiency. Now, why does mitochondrial efficiency matter so much as we age? Because after 65, your mitochondria, the tiny power plants inside every one of your cells, begin shutting down. That shutdown is not a metaphor. It is the direct biological driver of fatigue, muscle wasting, cognitive fog, and immune collapse. What Moringa does is deliver a concentrated payload of antioxidants directly to your mitochondria and essentially clear the debris that is choking them. Think of your mitochondrial membrane like a fine mesh filter. Over decades, oxidative damage clogs that filter until almost nothing gets through. Moringa acts like a precision flush that restores the flow. Beyond mitochondrial health, research from the University of Calabar identified that isothiocyanates in Moringa inhibit a signaling protein called NF-κB, which is the primary molecular switch that turns on systemic inflammation in the aging body. Chronic low-grade inflammation is not just discomfort. It is the biological environment that allows cancer cells to evade your immune system, that accelerates arterial damage, and that locks your stem cells in a dormant state they cannot escape from. For your morning coffee, 1 teaspoon of Moringa leaf powder stirred directly into your cup before or after brewing is the effective dose range used in most clinical studies. The taste is mild, slightly earthy, and blends cleanly into coffee. The fat in your morning cup, whether that is a splash of cream or coconut oil, enhances absorption of Moringa's fat-soluble compounds by up to 55%. For maximum synergy, pair it with a small squeeze of lemon. The vitamin C accelerates bioavailability significantly. Scientific references for this and every other study in today's video are linked in the description below. And speaking of what happens when your body finally gets what it has been starved of, number 4 is one that most cardiologists have spent 2 decades warning their older patients away from. The latest research suggests that advice was not just wrong, it was quietly doing damage. Stay with me. Aged black garlic. Now, before you dismiss this as a cooking ingredient, I need you to understand what happens to garlic when it undergoes controlled aging at precise temperature and humidity for 30 to 40 days. The harsh, unstable compounds in raw garlic transform through a process called the Maillard reaction into a suite of extraordinarily stable, highly bioavailable antioxidants. The most critical of these is a compound called S-allylcysteine, or S-SAC. S-SAC exists in almost negligible quantities in raw garlic. In the aged black form, it becomes highly concentrated and biologically active in ways raw garlic simply cannot replicate. A clinical study from the Korean Institute of Science and Technology followed 64 adults over the age of 65 through a 12-week supplementation protocol. The results were striking across multiple systems simultaneously. LDL cholesterol dropped an average of 19%. Natural killer cell activity increased by 56%. Fasting insulin improved by 23%. And TNF-alpha, one of the most destructive inflammatory proteins in the aging body, decreased by 31%. I want you to sit with that for a moment. No single pharmaceutical agent produces measurable improvements across that many biological systems at the same time. That is what whole food bioactives do when the research finally catches up to them. Here is the timing piece most people get wrong. The majority of people who use aged black garlic take it randomly throughout the day or with dinner. Research from the University of Tsukuba suggests that consuming aged black garlic extract in the morning alongside caffeine dramatically enhances the bioavailability of SAC because caffeine increases peripheral circulation and accelerates compound delivery to tissues. Morning is when your body's inflammatory reset cycle is most active, and that is exactly when SAC needs to be present to intervene. For your morning coffee, 600 to 900 milligrams of aged black garlic extract in capsule form is the clinical dose range. Alternatively, 1 to 2 aged black garlic cloves eaten whole alongside your morning cup works equally well. They are soft, deeply savory, almost molasses-like in flavor. Nothing like raw garlic. Nothing that will follow you into your day. I want to tell you about Dorothy, 79 years old, retired schoolteacher from Savannah, Georgia. When her daughter brought her in, Dorothy had stopped cooking. Not because she couldn't, because she said she couldn't remember what she liked anymore. She sat in the intake chair and told our coordinator, "I don't feel like myself, and I haven't for a long time." Her inflammatory markers were among the highest I had seen in a patient not yet diagnosed with an autoimmune condition. 8 weeks into a morning protocol built around several items on today's list, Dorothy's CRP had dropped by 41%. But what her daughter called us about wasn't the blood work. She called to say her mother had made Sunday dinner for the first time in 2 years. Dorothy told her, "I just woke up one morning and I remembered who I was." I have been practicing medicine for over 30 years. That sentence stopped me. Now, what I am about to show you at number 3 is the compound that made me go back and reread my own clinical notes. Because I had patients who should have responded to conventional treatment and didn't. And when I look at what was missing, it was this. Every single time. Berberine. You may have encountered it, but I can almost guarantee you have not heard the full picture, because the full picture is something the pharmaceutical industry has very little financial interest in amplifying. Berberine is a bioactive alkaloid found in several plants, including barberries and golden seal. What makes it remarkable in the context of aging is its demonstrated ability to activate an enzyme called AMPK, adenosine monophosphate activated protein kinase. Think of AMPK like the master reset switch for your entire cellular energy system. When AMPK is activated, it initiates a cascade that stimulates the proliferation of mesenchymal stem cells, the stem cells specifically responsible for regenerating muscle, bone, and connective tissue. After age 65, these stem cells become progressively dormant. Berberine, by reliably activating AMPK each morning, essentially keeps waking them up. A meta-analysis published in the journal Metabolism reviewed 14 randomized controlled trials involving adults over the age of 60. Across all 14 trials, berberine supplementation produced a statistically significant reduction in fasting blood glucose, LDL cholesterol, and triglycerides. But the finding that stunned the research team was the effect on visceral fat. Adults taking berberine lost an average of 2.3 centimeters of waist circumference without any changes to diet or exercise. Visceral fat is not just weight. It is an active endocrine organ that floods your bloodstream with inflammatory signals that suppress immune function, accelerate cognitive decline, and create the metabolic environment in which cancer cells thrive. Beyond metabolic function, research published in the journal Aging Cell found that berberine activates a cellular cleaning process called autophagy, your body's internal recycling system that breaks down damaged cellular components and clears the debris that accumulates with age. After 65, autophagy becomes sluggish and inefficient. Berberine essentially gives it a restart. Think of autophagy like the night cleaning crew in a large hospital. Without them working efficiently, the debris from the day's activity accumulates until the facility cannot function. Berberine keeps that crew working through the night. For your morning coffee, 500 milligrams of berberine taken with your cup is the dose range used in most clinical studies. It does not dissolve easily in liquid, so capsule form is optimal. The fat in your morning cup significantly enhances absorption. For synergy, combining berberine with the aged black garlic from item 4 creates compounding effects on both insulin sensitivity and inflammatory suppression that researchers at the Institute for Functional Medicine have described as greater than the sum of their parts. Now, if you are finding value in what we are covering today, I want to ask you to do one thing right now. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We publish new research-backed content every single week, specifically for people who refuse to accept that getting older means getting weaker, slower, or less sharp. Your subscription helps us reach more seniors who need this information and are not getting it anywhere else. And if berberine is the switch that wakes your stem cells up, number 2 is the fuel that keeps them running. I promised you earlier that one item on this list would challenge everything your doctor has told you about fat. This is that item, and the study behind it is one I have referenced in every lecture I have given for the past 4 years. Number 2 is MCT oil, medium-chain triglyceride oil, and I already know what half of you are thinking because I hear it every week. Doctor, my physician told me to cut fat from my diet. I understand. For decades that advice was given in good faith. It was also wrong, and in the context of aging specifically, it has caused genuine biological harm. Here is what the science now tells us. A study published in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease followed 152 adults with mild to moderate cognitive impairment. Those who consumed 20 grams of MCT oil daily showed a 7-point improvement on standard cognitive assessment scores within 90 days. Why? Because MCT oil is metabolized differently from every other fat in your diet. Where conventional fat moves through your lymphatic system and takes hours to process, MCT oil travels directly to your liver and is converted almost instantly into ketones. Ketones are an alternative fuel source for your brain, and here is what makes this critical for people over 70 specifically. After age 70, your brain's ability to use glucose as its primary fuel begins to decline. This is called cerebral glucose hypometabolism, and it is considered one of the earliest detectable markers of cognitive aging. Ketones bypass this problem completely. They are a backdoor into your brain's energy system that does not require the glucose pathway at all. But the stem cell activation piece is what truly distinguishes MCT oil in the aging context. Research from the Buck Institute for Research on Aging found that ketone metabolism triggers the same AMPK signaling pathway we discussed with berberine. When both are present simultaneously, the effect on mesenchymal stem cell activation is compounding. These are the stem cells responsible for regenerating muscle, bone, and connective tissue, and in seniors, they are increasingly dormant. MCT oil combined with berberine essentially keeps them awake and working. Harold was 74. retired high school football coach from Jackson, Mississippi. His son had driven 4 hours to bring him in because Harold had stopped arguing. That was how his son put it. He said, "My father had an opinion about everything his whole life, and now he just sits there." Harold's cognitive assessment flagged early-stage decline. He described his own thinking as trying to start a car with a dead battery. Every morning he turned the key and nothing happened. 9 weeks later, on a follow-up call, Harold's son got on the line before Harold could speak. He said, "I need you to know, my dad called me last Tuesday to argue about a football game. I almost cried." Harold told us his mind felt like it had come back from somewhere far away. His neurologist, reviewing the follow-up assessment, used the word unexplained. I do not find it unexplained at all. Everything we have covered today has been building toward this. Number 1 is the compound I held back deliberately, because if I had led with it, you might not have believed the rest. 3,000 years of medicinal use. And what the clinical trials are now confirming about what it does to cancer cells specifically is something I want every person over 65 in this country to know. Black seed oil, Nigella sativa. The primary active compound is called thymoquinone, and the breadth of its demonstrated biological activity is extraordinary. A study published in the journal Phytomedicine followed 94 adults over the age of 65 across an 8-week supplementation protocol. Those receiving thymoquinone showed a 52% increase in natural killer cell cytotoxicity, meaning their immune cells became dramatically more effective at identifying and destroying abnormal cells. They also showed a 28% reduction in CRP, the primary blood marker of systemic inflammation, and a statistically significant improvement in memory recall scores on standardized cognitive testing. But the cancer biology piece is where the research becomes truly remarkable, and I want to be precise in my language because precision matters here. Thymoquinone has been studied extensively in laboratory and animal models for its effect on cancer cell survival pathways. Research published in the journal Cancer Research identified that thymoquinone suppresses a protein called survivin, which cancer cells use to evade programmed cell death. In healthy cells, damaged or abnormal cells are supposed to self-destruct through a process called apoptosis. Cancer cells hijack survivin to turn that self-destruction signal off. Thymoquinone interferes with that hijacking. This is not a cure. The clinical human trials are ongoing, but the chemopreventive research is being actively pursued at institutions including MD Anderson and Memorial Sloan Kettering. And the mechanistic rationale is compelling in ways that demand your attention. Beyond cancer biology, research from King Abdulaziz University found that thymoquinone activates the NRF2 pathway, a master regulatory switch in your cells that controls the production of your body's own internal antioxidant enzymes, including superoxide dismutase and glutathione. After age 65, NRF2 activity declines significantly. External antioxidants like vitamin C and E help, but nothing replaces the power of your own cellular antioxidant machinery running at full capacity. Thymoquinone essentially restarts that machinery. For your morning coffee, 1 teaspoon of cold-pressed black seed oil stirred directly into your cup is the effective dose. It has a distinct, slightly peppery, warm flavor that blends surprisingly well with coffee. The fat matrix of your morning cup enhances absorption significantly. For maximum synergy, combining black seed oil with MCT oil creates what researchers have described as a compounding effect on both NRF2 activation and natural killer cell response, each amplifying the other's impact on immune surveillance and cellular protection. Now let me bring this together for you because I want you to feel the full weight of what we have just covered. You are not too old. That is not reassurance. That is a biological fact supported by decades of research in cellular regeneration, epigenetics, and nutritional biochemistry. The 5 additions we discussed today, Moringa leaf powder, aged black garlic, berberine, MCT oil, and black seed oil, each address distinct but deeply interconnected pathways of aging. Mitochondrial decline, systemic inflammation, stem cell dormancy, cognitive fuel deficiency, and immune senescence. Together, they function less like a supplement list and more like a morning protocol of cellular renewal. The seniors who implement these consistently do not just feel better. Their blood work changes. Their functional capacity changes. Their relationship with their own bodies changes. Independence is not something that happens to people with lucky genetics. It is something you build every morning with the choices you make before the rest of the world wakes up. Quality of life in your 70s and 80s is not a coin flip. It is a biological negotiation, and you have far more leverage in that negotiation than anyone has ever told you. It is never too late to begin. The research is unambiguous on that point. Cells that have been dormant for years can be reactivated. Inflammation that has been building for decades can be reversed. Cognitive decline that feels inevitable is in many cases a choice, not a destiny. If this video gave you something, a new idea, a reason to open that kitchen cabinet, a story that sounded a little like your own, please subscribe to this channel right now and hit the bell so you never miss what we release next. And tell me in the comments, which of these 5 are you going to add to your morning coffee first? And if you are already using any of them, tell us what you have experienced, because this community learns from each other just as powerfully as it learns from the research. I will be reading every single one. See you in the next video.